Hello PEI, welcome to this week's episode. I want you to imagine, just for a second, sitting across your kitchen table, you've got your phone open, and you're looking at this AI-generated home value estimate.
Oh, we've all been there, staring at that number.
Right, and it looks so clean, it's precise, it's confident, and it feels like it's just, carved in stone by the absolute authority of mathematics.
Yeah, it gives you that false sense of total security.
Exactly, but there is a massive problem. That confident algorithm is off by over $40,000.
I mean, that is life-changing capital, just completely vaporized by an equation.
It really is. And it makes you wonder, right? How could an advanced system of something processing millions of data points a second be that disastrously wrong about a single piece of property?
It's the million-dollar question, or I guess the $40,000 question in this case.
Yeah. So that is our mission today. We are opening up a field guide to navigating real estate in the age of algorithms. We want to parse out exactly where you should hand AI the wheel and where doing so just makes you a fool.
And that distinction is critical, because we're watching a fundamental shift right now in how transactions operate. The technology isn't receding, obviously, but the application of that tech is what dictates whether your transaction closes smoothly or, well, spirals into a financial disaster.
Absolutely. Which brings us to the architect of today's deep dive. We really have to give a massive thank you to Mike Montague of Remax Charlottetown.
Oh, absolutely. Mike's work on this is incredible.
Yeah, Mike is the creator and producer of the show, and he brings 26 years of real estate experience to the table. He specifically compiled the research and the extensive notes that form the foundation of our entire conversation today.
And what really stands out about Mike's perspective here is that he isn't some anti-tech dinosaur just blindly fighting the future.
Right.
He's a self-admitted tech geek. He has navigated literally every technological wave in this industry for a quarter of a century. He's watched the cycle of hype and panic play out repeatedly.
Which is so valuable.
It is. And his core philosophy, which really serves as the thesis for our analysis today, is that the essence of a good professional in 2026 is knowing how to use technology to amplify expertise, never to substitute human judgment.
Amplify, not substitute. I love that. And to truly understand why AI fails so spectacularly on pricing, like that $40,000 miscalculation we mentioned, we first need to explore what it actually masters.
Because it does master a lot, let's be fair.
Yeah, if we're being honest, AI possesses some incredible cognitive advantages in the preparation phase.
It acts as this elite, tireless research assistant, specifically when dealing with the invisible structural friction of a real estate deal. The sheer volume of unstructured data titles, disclosures, historical pricing, that stuff historically just bogs down human cognition. AI removes that cognitive load.
Okay, let's unpack this. What does removing that cognitive load actually look like for a buyer or seller who's entering the market today?
Well, consider the initial homework phase. Advanced models can just instantly pull recent sales, cross-reference price trends over a decade, and analyze days-on-market patterns for a hyper-specific zip code.
Right.
And for a buyer, it can organize scattered financial documents, calculate debt-to-income ratios in milliseconds, and generate a customized checklist of what a specific lender will actually demand during mortgage pre-approval.
It's like having an overly eager intern, right? Like an intern who will happily sit in a windowless room and read 50 pages of dry listing data while you sleep.
That is the perfect way to look at it.
And I think this is the crux of the issue. You wouldn't send that same intern out to independently negotiate the biggest financial transaction of your life, right?
Of course not. Because when you hand over the negotiation, you aren't just trusting the intern with numbers. You're trusting them with nuance.
Exactly.
You leverage the algorithm to do the computational processing so the human expert can reserve their mental bandwidth for the high-stakes decision-making. We see this incredibly clearly in buyer education, actually.
Oh, for sure. Real estate is inherently intimidating. It's packed with jargon most people only encounter, like maybe twice in a lifetime.
The terminology alone is enough to induce a panic attack.
Seriously.
Picture a first-time buyer at 2 a.m. They're staring at a property disclosure, suddenly terrified about what a fixed covenant means for their ability to just build a fence in the backyard.
Or they're trying to decode what an easement is.
Right, or panicking over the legal constraints of an offer being conditional on financing. A human professional is asleep at 2 a.m., but an algorithmic assistant can parse those documents, explain the concepts clearly and instantly, and synthesize complex legal frameworks into plain language.
It totally neutralizes the late-night anxiety. It brings the buyer to the table fully informed the next morning.
Exactly. And moving from the educational side to the logistics, the sources also highlight how AI is functionally eliminating the unglamorous administrative drag of the business. Record management and scheduling used to consume hours of a realtor's day.
The historical inefficiency of coordinating calendars in real estate is staggering.
Oh, it's calendar Tetris. You are trying to align the buyer, the seller, both representing agents, the property inspector, and maybe an appraiser. Getting 6 busy adults to agree on a Tuesday afternoon showing window is a logistical puzzle that used to require a dozen emails.
It was basically a dedicated job role, just sending "does 3 p.m. work" messages back and forth until someone finally gave up.
Yeah. AI processes those scheduling conflicts seamlessly now. And beyond calendars, it revolutionizes digital document architecture. Offers, counteroffers, inspection reports, local disclosures. These are no longer buried in some email thread from 3 weeks ago.
Right, they're right there.
AI makes them instantly searchable, cross-referenced, and sets automated, zero-fail reminders for financing deadlines and inspection windows. A flawless paper trail is just generated autonomously.
So when we look at this practically, AI is functioning as an invisible structural support system. By absorbing all that administrative friction, it prevents human error in the paperwork.
Which fundamentally alters the modern realtor's value proposition. If a professional isn't burning their cognitive energy managing a chaotic inbox, they transition from a logistics manager to a strategic advisor.
Yeah.
Preventing logistical errors builds the foundational trust required for the client to rely on the agent when the stakes actually get high.
That makes total sense. But if AI is so flawless at reading paperwork and managing logistics, it's easy to see why sellers assume it can flawlessly plan, say, a physical property renovation.
Yeah, that's where things get dicey.
Right, because moving from digital documents to physical drywall exposes the algorithm's first major flaw.
The context problem. When algorithms attempt to project physical value based on scraped data, they walk right into a statistical trap.
In theory, AI acts as a genuinely useful assistant for a seller trying to prep a home or a buyer imagining a fixer-upper. It can generate intelligent questions for contractors, identify anomalies in quotes, and give you spatial design inspiration. But the data architecture it relies on for return on investment calculations is inherently flawed for regional markets.
Because automated valuation models, or AVMs, construct their cost-to-value ratios from massive aggregated datasets. And those datasets are heavily skewed by national averages, mostly driven by major American metropolitan trends.
Right, so an algorithm looks at a property on Prince Edward Island, cross-references its dataset for maximizing home value, and suggests, to optimize your sale price, you should install an in-ground swimming pool.
Which is objectively hilarious to anyone who has lived through a January on PEI.
I mean, exactly. The algorithm sees the statistical correlation like pool equals luxury, luxury equals premium price, but it's completely blind to the reality that a buyer there cares infinitely more about a reliable, high-efficiency heat pump.
A pool in a PEI winter is just a very expensive ice rink you can't skate on.
Right. But I struggle with this a bit, though. If an AI is constantly ingesting new data, scraping weather patterns, and analyzing zip code demographics, why can't it just eventually cross-reference PEI winters with pool maintenance costs? Is the tech just lagging, or is there something fundamentally impossible about scraping local preferences?
It comes down to the difference between statistical data and visceral cultural desirability. An algorithm can eventually scrape data stating a pool costs $30,000 and a heat pump costs $10,000. It can even download historical temperature graphs.
Okay.
What it cannot measure is regional common sense. It cannot calculate the lived reality of what local buyers value in their daily routines. A spreadsheet cannot quantify how a community culturally perceives a certain type of heating system or why one specific neighborhood suddenly became the absolute most desirable place for young families despite having older, less energy-efficient homes.
Because cultural desire isn't a data point you can just scrape from a municipal website.
Exactly. The models are constrained by the data they can perceive. If a variable isn't digitized in a structured format, it mathematically does not exist to the algorithm.
And that inability to perceive unstructured, qualitative reality is the exact mechanism behind the $40,000 mystery we opened with. Let's solve why the algorithm completely botched that valuation.
Well, the AVM operated exactly as programmed. It looked at the square footage, the bedroom-to-bathroom ratio, and the recent sales data within a half-mile radius. It treated the property as a flat geometric plane in a vacuum.
Right. It missed the 40 grand because it couldn't see the ground truth. It had no mechanism to know that the specific road leading to this property severely floods every single spring.
Which is a topographical reality that drastically reduces buyer interest, yet rarely shows up in a standard MLS dataset.
Furthermore, the algorithm was entirely unaware that 3 of the neighboring properties had recently been converted into highly active short-term rentals. It couldn't hear the late-night noise, and it certainly couldn't see the garbage bags placed at the curb after a rental weekend that just blow up and down the street until collection day.
AI cannot parse the acoustic reality of a neighborhood, nor can it scrape the presence of blowing garbage.
No. And add to that an invisible municipal variable. The AI entirely missed that there were pending negotiations underway at City Hall to approve a 5-story stick-built apartment complex on the lot directly behind the subject property.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the algorithm confidently priced the house based on the assumption of peace, quiet, and privacy, when the physical reality was flooding, garbage, noise, and a looming multi-year construction project. It's like the AI can read the sheet music perfectly, but it has absolutely no idea what the instruments actually sound like.
The sheet music versus the melody is the perfect framework for this. The algorithm processes the notes, the square footage, the zip code, but misses the harmony of the actual environment. And this failure of context isn't just an isolated glitch, it is a structural blind spot.
Right.
The research points out numerous hyperlocal nuances on PEI that exist entirely outside the digital architecture. Take residential water sources. An algorithm sees a well on the property survey. It doesn't know that specific well routinely runs dry every August due to the local water table.
Or older septic systems installed decades before current environmental regulations, which a new buyer will inevitably have to replace at a massive cost.
Yes. The algorithm sees a functioning utility. The local expert sees a ticking financial time bomb. Or consider the pastoral appeal of a property adjacent to a working farm.
The algorithm looks at a satellite map and flags pastoral agricultural adjacency. It assumes beautiful, unobstructed views and prices it as a premium,
While entirely missing the olfactory reality of that proximity. It may be stunningly beautiful in early June, but during spreading season, the smell is inescapable and completely alters the usability of the property.
Yeah, a satellite map doesn't have a smell feature.
Exactly. And beyond the sensory details, there are municipal blind spots. Zoning and bylaw differences shift drastically just by crossing a municipal boundary line. What a buyer is legally permitted to do with a property in Charlottetown differs entirely from Stratford, which differs again from the rural municipalities.
And then you have invisible heritage covenants placed on older PEI properties that severely restrict aesthetic modifications. If those covenants aren't cleanly formatted in a digitized scraped dataset, the AI simply assumes the buyer possesses full, unencumbered development rights.
Which introduces the most complex variable of all, the human element of the transaction. Algorithms attempt to model real estate as a purely mathematical commodity exchange. But a property transaction is deeply psychological. AI cannot read a room during a tense negotiation.
Pricing the house is really just the opening move on the board.
Precisely. An algorithm can suggest a listing price, but it cannot read seller motivation. It has no mechanism to determine if a seller is quietly desperate for a rapid close because of an unexpected job transfer to another province, or if they're just comfortably testing the market and absolutely will not concede a single dollar.
Right.
Knowing when silence is a more powerful negotiating tactic than a rapid counteroffer is a deeply human psychological skill.
The analysis actually highlights a particularly sensitive scenario regarding senior downsizing, which I think perfectly illustrates this data blindness.
Oh, this is a great example.
Yeah, when an AVM registers a property being sold by an elderly owner, it processes it as just a standard inventory turnover. It has zero capacity to distinguish whether moving mom is a meticulously planned, joyful transition to a retirement community or a family in acute crisis operating under severe emotional and financial strain.
And that underlying reality changes the entire architecture of the transaction. It alters the pace of the sale, the tone of the marketing, how showings must be delicately scheduled.
Yeah.
And critically, who needs to be present in the room when binding decisions are made? A competent realtor navigates that fragile emotional landscape. An algorithm just generates an automated timeline.
And this data blindness is a universal pattern, not just a quirk of Prince Edward Island. Top producers universally recognize that algorithmic models just cannot compete with boots-on-the-ground sensory knowledge.
This is the precise intersection where a competent professional, literally makes the difference of tens of thousands of dollars in saved capital or earned equity for their customer. Physically walking the driveways, conversing with the neighbors, recalling which specific street suffered a sinkhole 3 years ago, these actions gather unstructured, vital context that algorithms are simply not designed to scrape.
So, if AI possesses these massive structural blind spots, if it can't smell a farm, decode a desperate seller's body language, or recognize a flood zone, why does the real estate industry experience an existential panic every time a new piece of technology emerges?
Well, the anxiety is deeply ingrained in the culture of commission-based sales, even when historically unfounded. If we analyze the macroeconomic shifts in the industry, this exact cycle of dread repeats itself. It occurred when MLS listings were initially digitized and made accessible to the public internet.
Oh, I remember that.
The prevailing fear was that if buyers could view the inventory directly, the role of the agent would vanish overnight.
Which obviously didn't happen. The complexity of the transactions still required a guide.
The panic resurfaced with the introduction of Zillow and their algorithmic valuations. Then we saw the massive iBuyer waves, where heavily funded corporations attempted to purchase homes entirely through algorithmic modeling, explicitly promising to eliminate the traditional agent from the ecosystem.
Right. And what was the result?
The iBuyer models suffered catastrophic financial losses and largely retreated once they realized how stubbornly complex and localized real estate actually is. None of these technological waves replaced the human expert.
We see identical parallels in other high-stakes, trust-based professions. The advent of digital photography didn't eliminate professional photographers. It became the calculator, not the mathematician. It simply removed the mediocre practitioners and elevated the standard for the true artists.
Examine the legal sector. AI models are extraordinarily adept at drafting boilerplate contracts and conducting initial case law research across millions of documents. But no rational person is going to have a language model argue their defense before a skeptical judge.
No way.
In the medical field, AI systems are becoming incredibly proficient at analyzing MRI scans, often detecting microscopic anomalies faster than human radiologists. Yet, an algorithm does not sit in a room and deliver a nuanced, life-altering diagnosis to a terrified family.
Because there is a hard boundary there. According to the research, the ultimate barrier preventing AI from replacing real estate agents comes down to one fundamental concept: accountability.
The requirement for professional liability.
Yes. When a $9,000 mistake materializes, perhaps an overlooked municipal zoning bylaw or a critical failure to meet an inspection contingency, a client requires a licensed, insured human professional who is legally answerable for that error.
You cannot sue an algorithm.
Exactly. A chatbot holds zero liability and bears no consequences. Clients require an entity whose professional reputation, license, and livelihood are directly tied to the outcome of the transaction.
So synthesizing all of this.
So what does this all mean? It sounds like we aren't talking about tech replacing realtors at all. We're talking about tech separating the actual experts from the order takers.
The historical pattern is clear. New technology invariably arrives accompanied by maximalist, industry-ending hype. But once that technology is stress-tested against the chaotic reality of high-stakes human transactions, it always settles into functioning as an immensely powerful tool. The defining characteristic of an elite realtor in 2026 isn't resisting the algorithm. It is mastering the algorithm to eliminate administrative friction, thereby elevating their capacity to provide human insight.
It perfectly aligns with the central analogy from Mike's notes. Use AI the way you would use a highly advanced satellite map. It will illuminate all the potential roads, it will calculate the most mathematically efficient route on paper, and it will provide the broad topography of the market. But a map will never tell you which of those roads washes out every April. For that level of reality, you require a local guide who has actually driven the terrain.
You need the human context to transform raw data into actionable wisdom. The technology handles the data, but human empathy becomes the premium asset.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.